Hello again. This is Chad Everett Broshears. I am the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. And today's episode is on making others happy. Now, this is a trap. Actually, the general concept and the overview of it is it's nonsense. You can't make somebody else happy. So we'll go through a little bit of like the truth about this. First off, you have to understand people have other precepts, other conceived ideas about how something should go. Let me move things around here just a little bit. These preconceived notions on how things should go in life and how they should be treated. Now, making somebody else happy can become a trap, and it can become a really nasty slope that you get stuck into. And because you have to understand, just like yourself, everyone has come up in their own unique way. You didn't come up like anybody else did. You came up like you did. Even if you had siblings, there's still variances that are different that your siblings experienced that you yourself did not, or they did not experience that you did. So with that, some people are single children. Some people are, from single children homes. Others are multiple children homes. Some are broken home, like orphanages and foster homes and foster cares. There's all kinds of different contexts and scenarios that we grow up inside of. So when it comes to making somebody else happy, you don't know what makes them happy. If you're trying to bring it from your viewpoints, it's not going to work. If they haven't clearly put the line in the sand and said, this is the actions I need from you to make me happy, then you're shooting at the dark, exhausting yourself. Some things hit, other things don't hit as well. Some people feign reactions like, oh, that's so sweet you did that for me. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, you care so much. And then a week later, they don't remember that you did it. It doesn't mean that your actions were invalid, or even that they care less about you. You didn't strike on the same platform. You didn't even land anywhere close to the way the person anticipates being treated. We all have different paradigms, different realities that we live in. I'll ask you a quick question. Will help further explain this. The first question I'll ask, or actually the question I'm looking to ask, I ask all of my students and also clients, is how many realities are on the planet Earth? How many realities are there on Earth? Now, think about it for a moment. First off, there's different degrees of realities. There's a reality that we all share that is governed by our environment that has very little dictation beyond the definition. So there's very little variance off of the definition. That is like gravity. Aside from applying other laws and rules in physics, we'll all agree that gravity has a real influence on our life. Holds us where we are. In the generalist sense of understanding physics, in the lightest sense, we were taught this as a child, gravity and the basics of gravity, in the sense that if something's pushed over, it falls to the ground. Now, aside from applying some sort of, law of physics to offset that by chemistry or other force, some sort of other force that we would implement through science, there really is no other way of defeating gravity unless you leave the planet. Even though you leave the planet and say you're in outer space, your perception on gravity changes, but gravity itself is still present. It's just that you are the mass of gravity at that point rather than the Earth being the mass of gravity for your relative view. So when you're the mass of gravity, you do not feel the influence of gravity pulling you in any one direction unless you come close to another mass that is of size enough that it pulls you towards it, meaning it's greater in mass than you are. Otherwise, you may not feel the pull as if you and it are pulled closer together. Real basics on that. That's just gravity. That's a uniformed understanding of reality. Now, moving through, there is more than one reality for any given person on this planet. So we have roughly 7.6 billion people, maybe probably even more at this point. So there's more than one reality for any one given person. Your reality occurs by way of psychology and emotions. So when you change emotional states where your day is just going great, The reality for you about your day is it's going great. And then all of a sudden something triggers you, whether that be something you're familiar with as far as lack of funds, or you don't even have to be familiar with it. Some people just are familiar with a specific pattern and easily and quickly shift from the reality of everything's great to the position that I need to survive and I'm under stress. Now there's something coming after me. If you're walking through the woods by yourself or you're being chased by a bear, those are two distinct realities that are very possible to occur at this almost the same time. Once the bear starts to chase you, your awareness of the bear, or even before it starts to chase you, just the awareness of the bear shifts your reality to now I need to survive. Your day changed from a pristine walk through the woods to a life challenging moment that you will likely never forget. It's an interesting look, insight on why certain events are unforgettable. For another time. Okay. So if there are that many realities on this planet, so we'll add multipliers because your realities can change. And you can really look at it from what was your reality when you were in your 20s versus your 30s and your 40s if you've reached those age ranges, right? Or if you've only gotten into your 20s, what was your reality when you were a child? Before the age of 10? What was your reality through your teen years when hormones greatly influenced you? And parental guidance shifted from what you remember to, being very, whatever it was, right? To being more of, I have to treat you more like an adult now. And into your 20s, your reality continued to shift. It doesn't mean that it stays finite or solidified in the sense that that's it. Not finite, but solidified. That's the case in this. It's there's that many realities. Now, if there's that many realities, how many of those actually line up with your own? Just because you're with somebody, you sleep together, you're friends plus lovers, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever that is, husband, wife, or husband, wife, whatever it may be that you actually are inside, like whatever kind of relationship you're inside of. The challenges are keeping your partner happy is you don't know how. You know somewhat how to keep yourself happy, but most people don't know how to keep themselves happy either. They just know that there's certain experiences and influences that make them feel better and certain influences and experiences that make them feel worse or less than better. So with this, it's actually a fairly broad spectrum of different experiences that we have privilege to. So going around making yourself or making the person in your life happy is a concept of martyrdom. Most people believe that making their partner happy is they have to sacrifice certain things, even if the sacrifices are something not really felt so much and they're very minor. So let's say, like, normally you would hang out with your buddies. If you're a man, then you hang out with your buddies and you're a football guy and it's football night and your partner, and it's a new portion of a relationship, so it's really fiery and passionate. And your partner says, hey, why don't you come over and have a nice little dinner with me and we're going to lay back and watch, some Netflix and chill. Some of the kids like to say now, or we'll have some wine and we'll just sit and talk and, get to know each other better. I put up the hammock. Right? If it's the beginning of the relationship and it's still hot and fiery and sexually active and all the rest of this, where there's a great deal of excitement all the way around, you're very likely to rush over and spend time with your partner. And the sacrifice of spending time with your buddies and watching football has been a very minor experience. So much so that you didn't even notice that it was a sacrifice, that you had changed your plans from what you would have originally done in order to experience something else that took precedence. Now, these are minor or very microscopic sacrifices, so much so that you may even want to argue that it's a sacrifice. But all in all, it is still, but the reward is greater than what you had to give up, so you're likely not to weigh it the same. Now, if you spend your life in your relationship, or you spend your relationship trying to ensure that your partner is happy, you may give up a lot of your own or yourself to do so. Most people don't do well as being martyrs. They may believe that martyrdom is the way of expressing love. Another question that I like to ask all of my students and clients, and even people that I'm just consulting with that aren't quite clients or students, is define love. What is your definition of love? Especially dealing in relationships. What is your definition of love? This is a word that tricks people quite a bit. Now, there are three forms of definitions for the word love. Three different categories, if you will, and then there's subcategories to each one of these. So there's derivations. The first one is the actual definition you can look up in a dictionary, defined very clearly, that other people can also look up and say, haha, see, there's love. Then there is the social definition of love, or cultural definition. Both of those are still in the same category. So whatever your society or your immediate culture, your immediate group believes the term love is, or even expanded group, but it's still different definitions, so that you can find that in specific group movements or even cults, that the definition itself is a distortion from the actual definition in the book. Sometimes it's aligned, but it's not always guaranteed. So there's a social definition for love, in which what we function under in society to what would be the right way to behave with your partner in society. And that's the way you would express yourself properly with your partner. And then there's the individual definition, something that you created or experienced, influenced to think so as you've grown up, or as you've experienced life. That is your personal definition of love. This is where things get really tough in relationships, because now the book that I would suggest on this is The 5 Love Languages, which I've referred to in another series, as well as Paul Chek's Love and Empathy course, or conditional and unconditional love. Paul Chek is an excellent educator and holistic practitioner. So also another person to look into. There are actually, I've got a lot of references, but those two would do for right now, as far as just giving you a base level awareness. All right. So if that's the case, there's different definitions. What exactly is the truth of your partner's way of being happy? Because love and happiness are commonly linked. They're collapsed a lot of the times. You can be happy and not be in love. You can be in love and not happy. There's a lot of variables that play into this, so they're not hand in hand. They just happen to find themselves in the same basket a lot of the times, or even preconceived to be in the same basket a lot of the times, as if a qualified relationship of good value and high standing would be one that is happy and in love. So we have to understand that we develop and we find a way of being most survivable to our environment. So our environment includes social interactions with people, not just nature, as well as the economical value of your relationship with your job, your finances. There's a lot of different variances that weigh into what happy is. In my book, The Human Manual, and also in the introduction to the Human Manual, actually discusses this particular element of how you actually qualify and quantify your position of maturity, and how you ask yourself self-auditing questions on how to perceive what you need in order to develop to that next level, how you mature yourself to the next position. So making somebody else happy is near impossible from the possibilities of coincidence. Now, from the opportunities that present themselves in mature relationships is really simple. And this is covered well in depth in my course, Mastering the You in Relationships. That's actually going to be released November 1st, 2015, which is almost a month away. So with that, that's going to be available for you if you're interested in finding out more about it. You'll find it through my website, thehumanmanual.net. So www.thehumanmanual.net. Okay, so moving through, making somebody else happy. How do you actually do this? And I'm just going to throw this out there for you. It's covered in depth, very well in depth through that course, but I'll give you a little lead-in and a tip. You have to ask them what makes them happy. If they don't know what makes them happy, which I find is pretty regular, I ask the question and they're like, oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Ask yourself, how do you clearly define what makes you happy? If you can't answer that question right now with a piece of paper and write it out, there's work for you to do. If you don't want to do the work, then the result of not doing the work is continuing to have relationships the way you've had them. You don't know how to get your partner who does care about you, they're partners with you. You don't know how to get them enrolled and how to make you happy. And the same goes for you to them. If you don't know how to get the answers out of them, how to make them happy, you're in a crapshoot. There's going to be nuances where you see them smile, or they'll laugh, or they'll seem like they're having a lot of joy. They'll tell you how much they love you and all the rest of these things. But is it truly the action, or is it just the fact that you care enough to even express yourself? It's just, if it is that you care enough to express yourself, that usually dissipates as the relationship matures, because it's no longer about the superficial value, just caring or showing that you care, but now it's the depth of how you care. And that's where a lot of relationships sour, because what you do in the beginning is how you train yourself to behave with your partner. And the same as how you train your partner to expect how you should behave. But then there's the background of what they expect in a relationship beyond the immediate. Whenever sex starts to become a little less than exciting, as it normally is in the beginning, very exciting for a lot of people and very fiery and passionate, as it becomes more of a daily or weekly experience, you start to lose a little bit of that connection through sex, and you require more intimacy outside of the bedroom. This is where you actually get the fruit of the relationship. If you know and care about all of the little nuances of your relationship and your partner, then you can express love very easily and fluently, as if it is your main language, rather than some foreign language that you're trying to learn, the dialect. So it's that simple, and it really is that simplistic. But you have to start taking these things apart and live into the presence of the person, and not the perceivable nonsense new age spiritual position of being present, but more of being present to the core with the person that you're with, and being present to the core with you. First is you, because if you don't know how to do it for yourself, you sure as hell aren't going to be able to do it for your partner. It's just not going to work. You don't know how to go as deep as you actually would benefit by going. Because the deeper you know your partner, the more you can actually satisfy their expressions and experiences of life. But you don't do it at a cost to yourself, because your partner also understands the things that you value. And if they see that you've given up going to the football game with your buddies, or going over to watch football with your buddies, and because they asked you to come over home for a wine dinner, or wine and dinner in the hammock, and you're 10 years into the relationship, that may tell your partner, if you say, well, the game's just starting, it's the beginning of the season, sweetheart, right? Or this is the big game, this is what I've been waiting for, it's them versus us, and blah blah blah, and we're gonna kick their ass, and whatever. And there's all of this excitement around it, and they look back and say, well, when we were first starting off and we were really in love, which is really in lust, but we were really in love then, he really expressed himself with so much care and love for me. Or she used to give me a blowjob every night. That's usually where the guys go with it. It's not always, that's more of a superficial thing, but you still see the expression in the beginning. And what a lot of people say is just the same. What happens after people get married? There's expectations. Now, if certain sexual favors are knocked off once you get married, on both sides, it could be that they just did that enough to keep you involved. And then now that you're married, there's a little bit more security that you're not going anywhere. So they don't have to do as much. They don't have to show and express themselves the same ways anymore. Now, and I'm going to summarize here and very quickly, but as far as making other people happy, it's a trap. It's a slippery slope. You're not really, it's the likelihood of you doing it is you're more likely to win the lottery than you are to actually and fully and deeply satisfy your partner and fully and deeply satisfy yourself. If you don't understand your partner to the degree that I'm expressing in this video, if you spend most of your time behaving towards your partner like you did when you first started the relationship, when you were in lust and not so much in love, very hard to distinguish the difference in the beginning, because lust is a very powerful force. There's nothing wrong with it. Lust is very perfectly natural, but lust will burn out over time to a degree compared to how exciting it is in the beginning when you're learning or developing yourself into someone else. I will go into the Feldenkrais position on love and development of profiles with individuals later in another video. So that video will likely be titled "Why We Lose the Luster of Our Partners" and or interest of our partners. But as far as this is concerned, you can't make another person happy, but you can help them teach you what they really enjoy that makes them happy. So it takes a little bit of work, takes a little bit of compassionate partnership. It's not something you accident your way into. All right. And the conclusion is you must start with yourself. Understand you as best you can, because that helps you guide other people in expressing what makes them happy, because you know how to find out what makes you happy. If you can't answer that question, you damn sure aren't going to be able to pull it out of somebody else. And now on your own, they may have the tools necessary to express what makes them happy. But if you can't answer the question yourself, you can't ask the question with certainty that they're going to give the right answer. All right. Just because their answer sounds convincing doesn't mean crap about it. All right. So with that, was there any other thing that I wanted to mention with this? Look for the program coming out November 1st, 2015, Mastering the You in Relationships. There's 5 programs that will be launched on November 1st through my website. So if you're interested in that, by all means, you can go to the website. It'll be up for pre-order soon. The website launch will be also the beginning of the first few weeks of October, and then there will be the pre-sales that take place. So if you're interested in more of that, by all means, please follow and pre-order if you're ready for it. Comment below if you have any questions, and or share this on your social media if you found great value in it or any value at all. If you do have any questions, please, just comment it below or email me at Chad. It's chad@thehumanmanual.net. All right. With that, again, this is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia, and I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears. I look forward to our next video. Thank you, guys.